Boldwood presents A Mother Like You, written by Ruby Speechley and read by Miriam Rennie. Prologue. She drags herself out of bed and stands at the side of the cot in the middle of the night for the 100th time. The little face is crimson with rage. She picks the baby up and cradles it close, jogging gently up and down. But the hot little body stiffens and the piercing cry grows louder and louder, ringing in her ears as though it doesn't know its own mother, punishing her for being so incompetent. She holds the baby out in front of her and yells, "What do you want?" Moments later, the baby is quiet, stunned. She drops it down on the mattress in a dull, shallow bounce. This time the baby's cry is high-pitched. Blinking back tears, she stares at the tremor in her hands. How could she do that? What is wrong with her? A voice behind her shouts, "What have you done?" She covers her ears and screams. Chapter 1. October 2018. Kate Marshall's last thought before she blacked out was of the man standing at the back of the room watching her. A moment earlier, she'd finished her presentation to an enthusiastic cheer. The conference room at stately Sopwell House was packed with businessmen and women eager to hear about the team-building events planned for the day. As she stepped away from the podium, hot white lights gleamed in her eyes. She pressed her fingers to her brow. Her face and neck burned. Why didn't someone open a window? Her body jolted. For a split second, she thought she saw his face. Blood pumped in her ears. A pain shot through her head. She scanned the room. It wasn't possible after all this time, was it? A wave of nausea swept over her. The audience became a blur, and her vision folded as she sank to the floor. When Kate came to, her first thought was of herself, aged 6, tripping over Angel Gabriel's tunic during the school play. Everyone had laughed. But it wasn't the laughter that had latched in her heart like a fishhook. It had been seeing her mother quietly stand up and leave. "I'm fine, really," Kate blinked and spread her fingers out in front of her. She tried to focus on her short rouge noir nails and the thin platinum wedding band. She'd been sickening for something all week. "Can you stand?" Sally asked, nodding to Steve to take Kate's other arm. "I think so." She moved a strand of hair from her lips. "Let us through, please." Steve waved away their colleagues, who had gathered round the stage. They led her to the empty lounge area. Someone passed Sally a bottle of water. "Are you sure you're not hurt?" Sally knelt in front of her. She unscrewed the lid and handed her the drink. "I'm sore and a bit queasy." Kate was never ill. When she sipped the water, it tasted metallic. Her hand trembled. She'd never blacked out in her life. "It is stuffy in there," Sally said. "I should go back and mingle." "No, you won't," Steve said. "The whole team is out there. They know the drill." Kate gave a thin smile. The smell of his sharp citrus aftershave caught in her throat and almost made her gag. "Let's help you up to your room," Sally said. After Sally and Steve had gone, Kate kicked off her stilettos. The ceiling seemed to press down on her. She closed the curtains. It didn't matter what time she went to bed recently, she was always tired. She set the alarm on her mobile and stretched out on the plump bed. Her stomach began to settle at last. She closed her eyes. An hour later, she stood in front of the full-length mirror, refreshed. She smoothed the ends of her long, blunt-edged bob. Her naturally wiry hair needed to be washed and straightened every day. Perhaps she'd try a streak of red through the fringe next week. She rubbed thick, medical-smelling cream up her arms, covering the patches of eczema like welts from a smack. When she left the room, the muted sound of conversation drifted along the corridor. A casually dressed man was chatting to a maid. He wore white chinos and a faded denim shirt, and walked with a familiar gait. It was as though someone had let go of an elastic band in her chest. It was him, wasn't it? For a second, she dared not move, waiting for him to turn so she could see more clearly. She started to follow. The floor creaked softly beneath the carpet. He turned the corner out of sight. She hurried after him, her laptop case bouncing against her thigh. He paused outside a bedroom door. She held her key to look like she was going into a room and stole another look at him. There he was, the hair shorter and lighter, possibly greying, the outline of his tanned face, the slight smudge of a beard. Heart-pounding, she rocked back on her heels and reached out to the wall, clipping a print of Morisot's The Cradle. She straightened it up. When she looked over again, he had gone into the room, the door sounding a loud click as it shut behind him. Could it really have been him? She shivered, alone in the passageway, staring at the closed door, the distant drone of traffic drifting through a tiny window behind her. Her mobile beeped, making her jump. A text from Sally. "How are you feeling?" Kate was supposed to have been in a meeting with her team 10 minutes ago. All she wanted to do was go and lie down again. She needed to think this through. Should she knock on his door? But if it was him, how might he react? Of all the people to bump into, what was he doing here? It could be awkward with her colleagues around. She couldn't afford to ruin her reputation or let it get back to James. The lift doors opened. By the time Kate strode into the conference room, the briefing for the treasure hunt event round the grounds was well underway. Skipping lunch seemed to have taken the edge off her nausea. "You okay?" Sally whispered, pouring her a cup of peppermint tea. Kate nodded and took a ginger biscuit. She fielded questions from the enthusiastic group, then helped to hand out the question sheets, clipboards and pens to each team. The room emptied as Steve led everyone out to the terrace to begin. "I'll catch you guys later." She ordered a bottle of sparkling water before lounging on a sofa in a quiet corner. James had left a message on her mobile. He was in York to meet potential new clients, present their corporate event packages. She called him straight back. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Steve told me what happened." So. I'll be fine." "All going well?" "Seems to be. Didn't know accountants could be such an enthusiastic bunch." The waiter brought her water and tipped half the bottle in a glass. "Look, I'm going to be in York longer than anticipated." He paused. "I need someone to help me at this pitch tomorrow because Tim's fallen sick, so I've arranged for Jasmine to come up." "Why didn't you tell me earlier? I could have come." Kate sipped the water, but the metallic taste was still there. They normally made decisions about the business together. They owned everything equally, and therefore they made decisions jointly. "Because you're needed there, Kate." She shifted but couldn't get comfortable. The girl had only started 3 weeks ago. "I thought her fresh ideas could swing it in our favour." "So you'll be back when?" "Not till late tomorrow. You'll be fine, you've got a great team with you." She didn't need him to tell her that. "Perhaps you should get something from the chemist." "Maybe. I'll see how I feel." "One more thing. Are we free at the end of the month? I can get a good deal on flights to New York. There's a Kandinsky exhibition on at the Guggenheim. If we're clear, I can book right now." "I'm not sure. Hold off for a day or two." This was so unlike her, but she hadn't felt this rough in a long time. Normally, she'd jump at the chance to go to New York for a long weekend, take in a show, visit the Museum of Modern Art, and add in a dash of early Christmas shopping. But it wouldn't be any fun if she was ill. "You'll be fine by then, surely." "Don't book anything just yet." She rubbed her stomach. Maybe she'd picked up a bug or a touch of food poisoning. "All right, if you're sure." "I'll speak to you in the morning," she said. The lounge was humming with chatter. Kate's team were gathered on 2 leather sofas round the open fire. The clients were already in the dining room, still buzzing from the great day they'd had. She caught the waiter before she sat down and ordered champagne and a glass of orange juice for herself. She hated being the only sober one. "Come and sit by the fire, you look cold." Sally moved along the sofa. "Thanks." Kate sat down, shivering. The waiter brought the drinks and handed her the juice. "What's this?" Steve said. "Kate, not drinking. Perhaps the sky is about to fall in." Everyone laughed. He mimed a prayer. Kate tried to look amused. "Very funny, Steve, but I'm still not feeling great." The heat from the fire was warming her, making her sleepy. "You look pale," Sally said quietly. Kate gave a weak smile, grateful for her concern, but she wasn't about to confide in anyone. "Great job today, everyone," she said, raising her glass. "Yes, even you, Steve." He took a bow and headed over to the bar to chat up a redhead. And just along from them stood the man she saw earlier, now shaved and wearing a navy linen suit and staring right at Kate. She gave a start, and her face burned like it used to when she was a teenager. Why was he here? Everyone round her stood up to go to the table, but she was fixed in a stare of recognition. Kate, are you feeling all right? Sally touched her arm. Oh, yes, sorry. Kate blinked at her. Sure you're well enough? Sally linked her arm through Kate's. The others went on ahead to the dining room. If I need to leave early, will you see everything go smoothly? She glanced back, but he'd gone. Of course, Sally said. Kate picked at her meal. She tried not to engage in deep conversations with anyone, her mind too distracted. Seeing him again had stirred up feelings she'd pushed away long ago. Her gaze wandered round the room, searching for him. When everyone had ordered their desserts, Kate said goodnight and headed up to her room. As she stepped out of the lift, the fire door to the stairs swung open and banged on the wall. She rummaged in her handbag for the key. Lost something? She glanced up at the familiar voice, and in a split second, the last 20 years fell away. She dared not breathe as a flicker of memories passed between them. Kate Watson, who'd have thought? What are you doing here? Her voice was breathless, heart thumping as she fumbled in her bag. You've not changed a bit, he grinned, scanning her up and down as if she stood there naked. Neither of you. She couldn't take her eyes off him. He moved closer, breathing more heavily. His warm, woody aftershave transported her back in time, stirring her with longing. She unzipped every pocket of her handbag and pulled out the keycard. His hand brushed hers as he took it, sending a spark through her body. He pushed down the handle and followed her into the room, letting the door fall shut behind them. Have you missed me? He stood millimetres from her, examining her. You left so suddenly. I didn't know where you'd moved to. She stepped backwards, clutching her bag to her chest. He looked so much older, but it suited him. Don't give me that nonsense. He grinned, moving towards her. Heat radiated from his body, sending a pulse of desire right through her. She dropped down on the bed, casting her bag to one side. He leaned over and ran a finger up her thigh, shins pressing against her legs, gently opening them with his knee. She took in a sharp breath, her body tingling. Why are you here? To see you. He rested his hands on the bed either side of her. The smell of brandy wafted from his breath. Why now? Why not? He was pinning her to the bed. She couldn't move. Tell me, how are your dear parents? Dad died 6 months ago. She edged her legs away from him. Ah, right, he nodded. He was a good sort. And your mother? Still playing up, is she? What do you want from me? She pushed her fists into his chest. He tipped his head back and laughed. You owe me, don't you think? A grin spread across his face. He straightened up and adjusted himself. 30 grand should do it. What? Are you kidding me? She sat up. Where on earth am I supposed to find that kind of money? I think it's fair, considering. He plucked a business card from a pile on the dressing table. I'll be in touch. He gave a sour laugh as he yanked open the door. I hope it's all been worth it for you, Kate. I really do. The shame and guilt she'd tried so hard to bury rose up and washed over her. The very thing she'd been running away from had finally caught up with her. She opened her mouth to speak, but the door closed before she could reach it, and when she looked out, he'd gone. Chapter 2. It's probably a bug or something. I feel so tired all the time, said Kate at the chemist's the next morning. Mrs. Ahmed gave her usual tight smile. Don't tell me, I've been working too hard. She rested her handbag on the counter. Mrs. Ahmed offered a wise nod. The pharmacy was empty except for Mr. Ahmed, shuffling tablets into a bottle behind her. A shard of sunshine fell across a poster by the till, fading the message about the symptoms of heart disease. I feel nauseous too, especially if I smell food. That's weird, isn't it? I'll give you something to settle your stomach. Mrs. Ahmed took a bright pink bottle off the shelf. I've not actually been sick, but it's like a permanent nausea in my throat and a sort of metallic taste. Mrs. Ahmed frowned. Is there a chance you could be pregnant? Kate wrinkled her nose. No, my period has started. I would take a test, just to rule it out. Really? Mrs. Ahmed only sold her medicine if she absolutely needed it, and would always suggest a cheaper alternative when she could. OK, if you think so. Back at home, Kate opened her laptop and checked her work emails. Nothing urgent, so she closed the lid and curled up on the sofa. 5 minutes, that's all she needed. Moving out of central London almost a year ago to a 4-bedroom house in leafy Boxmoor, Hemel Hempstead, had been a bold decision for them, but it made sense for their expanding corporate events business and their personal lives. She already felt like this was where they were going to stay long term. Moving back to Hertfordshire had prompted her to contact her parents after more than 20 years of not speaking to them. She'd made a success of her life and hoped they'd be proud of her. Nothing much had changed. They were living in the same 3-bedroom house she'd grown up in St Albans. Sadly, her dad had advanced Alzheimer's by then, and he died 2 months later. As soon as she first saw him again, she regretted leaving it so long. In his lucid moments, he said he forgave her for not staying in touch, but that made her feel even more guilty. She'd missed so much of his final years, and all because she was too ashamed to admit to making mistakes. A few minutes after dozing off, Kate woke with a jolt to her phone pinging several times. The screen was full of rows and rows of emojis, bags of dollars, hourglass timers and skulls. All text messages, but with no words, from a number she didn't recognise. It must be him. Shit. He wasn't going to let it go. Bile rose in her throat. She ran to the toilet to be sick. She washed her face and patted it dry. She couldn't be pregnant. It wasn't possible. These were perimenopausal symptoms, weren't they? She'd read somewhere they started at about 45. Except there was that night a few weeks ago, when they ended their dinner party with shots of Sambuca. She'd vomited at least twice in the night, and then... Oh, God. She'd forgotten to take extra precautions. Shit. She lifted the toilet seat and took the test out of the packet. Moments later, she sat on the side of the bath and watched 1, then 2 pink lines appear. She stood up and flicked the stick back and forth. It must be wrong. How could a stupid piece of plastic be accurate? She took the test again with the second stick. Seriously? This could not be happening. She sat on the laundry box staring at the 2 pink lines. James would be furious. She leaned back against the cold slab of tiles. A pain pierced between her legs. She doubled over. This didn't feel right. She needed to see a doctor as soon as possible. That afternoon, Kate parked at Hemel Hempstead Hospital. Her mobile phone rang, making her jump. She checked the screen before she answered. "Where are you?" James asked. "I'm out." Kate picked up a bottle of water from the passenger seat. Her appointment at the clinic was in 5 minutes, and she still needed to work out where she was going. Her GP had sent her straight over for an early pregnancy scan because she was still bleeding. She ought to be pleased. It probably meant she was miscarrying. Babies didn't feature anywhere in their life plan. "Look, I'm already on my way back," James said. "I wasn't expecting you until this evening." She regretted the tone it came out in. "They loved our pitch and booked 2 events straight away, so we left early." Kate headed for the building across the car park. "Are you still there?" "Yes." Kate took a large swig of water, then wished she hadn't, because it felt like it might come back up. "I thought we could meet for a late lunch, say 3 o'clock. Kate turned back, realising she hadn't bought a parking ticket. "Where are you?" James sounded like a sullen child. A man stood in front of her, feeding in a pile of 10-pence coins as if it were a fruit machine. James evidently thought the same. "Sounds like you're in the pub already." "Very funny. I'm in a car park." If she didn't drink enough water, they wouldn't see the scan clearly. "I can come and meet you." The man grinned at Kate, waving his ticket as if he'd won the jackpot. She dug into her purse for coins. "Look, I didn't want to worry you, but I'm at the hospital. They're doing a scan to check if the fibroids have grown. I've been bleeding. I probably didn't say." She held the mobile between her shoulder and chin and fed the correct money into the slot. In all their 10 years together, she'd never deliberately lied to him, Not about anything important. Except that. He mustn't find out about any of it. Will you be okay? He sounded worried. I'll be fine, I promise. She made her way across to the clinic. Shall we meet at the Fishery Inn? I'll text you when I get out of here. Got to go, I'm already late. She switched her phone off and chucked it in her handbag. Two nurses at the reception desk were deep in conversation. Kate banged her water bottle down in front of them, a little louder than she meant to. The older of the two stopped talking, looked at the bottle over half-moon glasses, then up at Kate. The other woman clicked her nails on the desk. Kate told them her name. The older woman asked her to go and sit in the waiting bay opposite. Although she was the only person there, Kate still hadn't been called after 20 minutes. By this time, she'd drunk so much water she thought her bladder would burst. Finally, a midwife with glasses hanging from her neck called her into a dimly lit room. Kate took off her coat and lay on the couch next to a trolley full of equipment and a computer screen. The midwife opened Kate's notes and asked her to lower her trousers and lift her top up. This your first? The midwife squirted gel onto Kate's stomach. Kate nodded. The midwife pressed a smooth, cold paddle down on her lower abdomen as she concentrated on the screen. She pursed her lips and pushed deeper, twisting to the left and right. Kate held her breath. You've had some spotting? Quite a lot of blood and really painful cramps like a period. Surely this meant if there had been a baby it had gone. Ah, here we are. The midwife flicked her glasses off her nose and swiveled the screen towards Kate so she could see the murky image of her womb. Baby's fine. See the heartbeat there? A butterfly came to life in Kate's chest. Her mouth opened. The tiny, indistinguishable shape, the winking heartbeat at its centre, transfixed her. Her baby. Their baby. A frisson of excitement whipped through her. Not how she expected to feel at all. She never thought this was possible. How could this be happening to her? What was she going to do? This was a miracle she didn't deserve. Let me measure it for you. The midwife pulled the screen to the front and placed her glasses on the end of her nose, tilting her head closer to the image. 7 weeks, 5 days. She ripped off a piece of paper towel and wiped the gel off Kate's stomach. You can get up now, she said, standing up herself. She wrote in Kate's notes on the workbench. I'll send a report to your GP and community midwife. You need to contact them if you have any further problems. Kate manoeuvred her legs off the bed and wondered if she could stand up without wetting herself. She tucked her top back in. Is there any fresh blood when you wipe? The midwife asked. Yes, every time. Do try not to worry. But why am I bleeding? Any number of reasons. Some women bleed throughout the pregnancy and the baby's fine. Kate put her coat back on. The midwife handed her the notes and showed her out, pointing to the toilet next door. Walking back through the waiting area, Kate's head floated in a bubble. People were talking, but the sounds were muffled as though none of it was real. How was it even possible at her age? What about her career, the business, the life she'd built up from nothing? She couldn't give it all up to be a mother. Was it possible to do both? Did she want to? But what about James, what they'd agreed? Oh, God, it would be impossible to tell him. She cupped her stomach and imagined the rhythm of the baby's heartbeat in time with her own. In the car, her fingers hovered over the mobile. She knew what James's reaction would be. She might still lose the baby, so was there any point in telling him? A woman pulled up next to her in a BMW soft top. Like Kate, she wore a trouser suit and heels. When she opened one of the rear doors, Kate expected her to pull out a laptop bag, but instead she lifted a toddler into her arms. The woman looked about her own age. Perhaps it was her only child, a fortunate mistake. She wanted to open her window and ask. A doctor once told her that the cut-off age for a healthy pregnancy was 32. She was past that by 13 years. More women were having them later, but it didn't mean it was safe. Could she really go through with it? What about their perfect lives, the freedom they had? Was it possible to do it all? James would not be happy. Children had never been on the agenda, and he was adamant they never would be. Was she even capable of being a good mother? She switched her mobile on, bracing herself for another barrage of nasty texts, but there was nothing, thank God. She texted James to say she was on her way. Chapter 3. James sat in their usual booth by the window, overlooking the Grand Union Canal. He stood up and pulled her into his arms. "You're cold," he said, and folded his hands over hers. The blustery weather had drawn most of the leaves off the trees, leaving a slippery path up to the door. She'd narrowly avoided falling over. "Did it all go well?" "The fibroids have grown, but I'll be fine," she lied. Looking away, she took her coat off. "I'd rather spare you the details." "I'll order a bottle of white." James called the waiter and shifted his empty whiskey glass aside. Kate held up a hand. "Orange juice for me." "Don't be silly." "No, really. My stomach is still playing up." "How about a spritzer? Might settle it down." "OK, but orange juice with soda, not wine. Tell me about York." "Very productive. Jasmine made a big impression. Did you know she has a 12-year-old son? Her husband works at Lola, designing racing cars." "She never said." Kate stifled a yawn. "Doesn't look old enough, does she? Anyway, I might need to go back up there next week." "So soon?" "There are lots of potential clients for us. I can arrange for you to come with me instead. I'm sure Jasmine could fill you in on her next pitch. We could stay on for the weekend if you wanted to." "I don't know. I'll have to see how I feel. I'd hate to go all that way and be ill." She certainly didn't need the new girl telling her what to do. "If she's doing a good job, let her finish it." James pulled one of his sour faces and went over to the bar. She gazed out of the window at the passers-by being blown along. An old lady with an umbrella was almost lifted off her feet. She hated lying to James. If she was going to have a termination, she may as well have a glass of wine. But the image of the tiny heartbeat flitted through her mind. Why not just tell him? James brought their drinks over. He pulled out 2 menus from under his arm. "Are we eating?" He sat down. "You can, I'm not very hungry." A smear of red sauce had stuck to the back of his menu. "Will you share some loaded nachos?" She shook her head. "That's not like you." She shrugged. James put the menu down. He stared at her as if he could read her mind. She swallowed hard and tried not to look away. "Seriously, what's wrong? You're not yourself." Kate let her hair fall over her face. She picked up a beer mat and peeled back the corner. James tilted his head, waiting for her reply. "I didn't want to tell you." "Look, whatever it is." She examined his face. The dark-rimmed eyes made him look tired, even when he wasn't. "You look upset." He reached across the table for her hand. "Has something happened?" She couldn't let him be the executioner when she felt so unsure of what she wanted herself. She tore off the top layer of the beer mat and took a deep breath. "The thing is," he squeezed her hand gently. She dipped her head. "It's Mum. She has to go to hospital." Unexpected tears pricked her eyes. "Why? What's wrong?" "She's been having chest pains. They think it's her heart. She's been in for tests." She kept that quiet. "Honestly, it's way too soon after Dad." Kate touched her lips. The waiter came over and asked if they were ready to order. "Give us a minute, please." James got up and crouched in front of Kate. He took her hands in his. "People survive these things a lot longer these days." "Even in their 70s? "She's still strong." "I'm not sure. She looks so frail." "Hang on, this is Elizabeth we're talking about. She survived the war and scarlet fever, remember? If anyone can get through this, it's her." He sat back down. It was true, she didn't know anyone as resilient. "You've been getting on so much better since your dad died." "Have we?" Kate folded the serviette. "You don't think so?" James stretched his arm across the back of the chair next to him. "I am really trying," she nodded, as if she needed to convince herself. "That's good then, isn't it?" "I still can't seem to do anything right." Kate rubbed the patches of itchy skin on her hands. "It's like I've never been away. She's still so distant." James kissed her hand. "It's been 20-odd years. Give it time. You're doing your best." He called the waiter over. "Now please eat something. How about the chicken and bacon salad?" "All right, but I won't be able to eat it all." "Can you do a starter portion?" James asked. The waiter nodded and scribbled on his pad. "And I'll have the steak and ale pie." The waiter wrote it down and went across to another table. "So everything went well at the event?" James asked. "Better than we expected. They rebooked for next year." "That's brilliant. You've got the golden touch. I told you they'd be blown away with your treasure hunt idea." Kate smiled. "I have some even better news. He slapped the table. Fearsome Events is up for Best Enterprising Business at the Hemel Business Awards. You're joking. Have you told the guys in the office? Not yet. I wanted you to know first. And, my darling, he reached over and put his hand on top of hers. You are on the long list for Businesswoman of the Year. Kate dropped back in her chair, pressing her hand to her chest. She could hardly believe it, the news she'd hoped for. If anyone deserves to win, it's you. He jabbed the table with his finger. But Kate's smile slipped as an unexpected hollowness gripped her. So much had changed in the last few months. Her dad passing away, her mother becoming ill, and now she was pregnant at 45. We should celebrate. Have something stronger, it'll make you feel better. No, really, not today. A G&T. He stood up. Sparkling water will be fine, thanks. Suit yourself. Kate watched him saunter over to the bar. He was almost indistinguishable, lined up next to the other suited drinkers, puffing their chests out, laughing at their own jokes. His confidence had attracted Kate from the moment she met him. It was 12 years ago that he'd been brought into her office in central London as a contractor to shake things up, and he certainly did that. He knew what he wanted in life, and he worked hard to get it. They got on immediately and worked well together. He already had ambitions to start his own corporate events business, and not long after they started dating, he invited her on board as an equal partner. She'd been flattered, excited to join him. They'd been married 10 years, both happily childless until now. Did you check the diary for the last weekend of the month? He asked, when he came back with the drinks. I promised to go over to Mum's. She wants me to finish clearing out the last of Dad's things. Does it have to be done then? You know what she's like once she's made her mind up. We could do some early Christmas shopping, visit a couple of museums. I'll speak to her about going over next weekend instead, assuming I feel better. OK, don't worry if you can't, it can wait. Mum won't do any of it herself. It's just so difficult, and she's bound to find some excuse to start on me. Elizabeth doesn't need a reason. The waiter arrived with their food. James ordered another glass of wine. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Susie and Harry want to talk to us on Saturday about being Lily's godparents. It would be rude not to. James groaned. Babies, kids. It's not us though, is it? Kate stared at her salad. The edges of the lettuce were brown. She pushed her plate away. He was right, of course. Babies didn't fit with their image, their lifestyle. They'd been careful about that. But Susie is one of your oldest friends. He put his knife and fork down with a clang. How could she persuade him? An advert for a holiday in Cyprus came up on the screen behind him. It showed a bronzed couple sitting on a beach while their children paddled in the water. Kate tried to picture them doing the same one day. But was it really them? Maybe she was kidding herself. James scraped his plate clean with a crust of bread, while his jaw worked on a mouthful of steak. When he was cross, he looked so much older. He'd be off to bed as soon as they got home. Aren't you going to touch that? James pushed a fork into the fatty chunk of bacon on her plate. It doesn't look very fresh. It tastes rank. He took the plate with him to the till for a refund. Kate pulled her coat on and waited for him at the door. She let her hand rest on her invisible bump, feeling oddly protective over the life growing there. Her mobile beeped and a message popped up from the same number as earlier. Unknown number. I've sent you a note with instructions on where to transfer the cash to. Make sure you follow them. Shit. Did he know her home address? Who's that? James pushed the door open as a gust of wind blew an empty plastic bottle rattling down the pavement. No one important. But the blood pulsed in Kate's ears. Why was he coming after her now? And what did he really want? Chapter 4. When Kate arrived the following day, her mother already had her coat on. It's colder in here than outside. Don't you ever put the heating on? Kate asked. Elizabeth ignored her and shuffled through a pile of unopened post on the telephone table. This came for you yesterday. Kate took the tatty envelope. Her stomach dipped and rose like a bouncing ball. She'd recognise the handwriting anywhere, always in capital letters, shouting at her. Aren't you going to open it? Elizabeth stamped her stick on the parquet floor. I'll read it later. Kate stuffed the letter in her bag. Have you got everything you need? The blue veins under her mother's eyes were more prominent than usual. A faint clicking noise seemed to come from the back of her throat. They stood awkwardly facing one another. If they'd been a different mother and daughter, Susie and her mum, for example, they might have hugged. Instead, Kate stepped back. As she did so, a hot pain shot through her groin. She excused herself and dashed to the downstairs toilet. Fresh blood stained the tissue. This should be good news, she told herself. It's what James would want. But in her diary, she'd started crossing off each day, hoping to reach the safe 12 weeks mark. She would have to call the midwife. The dull ache in her lower back was what she normally felt before a period. If this really was the start of a miscarriage, she needed to know what to expect. In the car, Kate flicked on the radio to break the silence. Wooden Heart, sung by Elvis, was halfway through. She hated it, but thought it preferable to an awkward conversation about why she'd stayed away. When they arrived at the hospital, they were directed to the specialist heart unit. They sat in the waiting area in front of a muddled pile of magazines. A middle-aged couple looked up, both with scarlet-rimmed eyes, their arms entwined like two trees that had grown together. Elizabeth's hands showed the slightest tremor. She tried to disguise it by stroking her gloves, but in the process, she knocked one to the floor. Kate picked it up and laid it gently on her mother's arm. She frowned at Kate and drew her arm away. A nurse called Elizabeth's name. "Are you sure you don't want me to come in?" Kate asked. Her mother shook her head and followed the nurse without looking back. Kate went outside to leave a message for the midwife. She'd probably say she should be at home resting. She'd never felt maternal before, so where did this strange pull to have a baby come from? She replied to a couple of messages from work, half hoping to be interrupted by the midwife calling her back. The hospital cafe wasn't very busy. She bought herself a coffee and sat down. Usually she'd be the first to grab the nearest newspaper, but today she swung her bag onto her lap and took out the letter. She stared at the envelope, examining her maiden name scrawled in blue writing. The person she used to be was so far removed from the person she'd become, the name may as well belong to someone else. Yet her hands became clumsy as she ripped open the gummed seam and shuffled out a scrap of paper. 30 grand is laying you off lightly. My bank details are on the back. Kate stared at the words, but they jumped about on the page. She folded the letter over and over into a tiny square. £30,000. He'd lost his mind. He clearly assumed she was rolling in it because of their successful business, her huge diamond ring and the Armani suit. But they'd worked hard to afford their lifestyle. Why should she give him a cut? A screaming toddler arrived at the next table. The mother gave Kate a withered smile and wheeled the pushchair back and forth while the father rushed off to find a high chair. Kate unfolded the letter again. No hint of anything else. This was how he was going to play it, not giving her any information in return. When she looked up, the toddler had been installed in a high chair and was now banging a spoon on the tray. Kate flipped over the envelope. She held the two ripped pieces of envelope together to read the post office date stamp. Isle of Wight. So, he'd gone back to live where he grew up. But what had prompted all this? Maybe he hadn't lied when he said he'd been at Sopwell House just to see her. He was unlikely to give up once he got an idea in his head. She folded the note up again and dropped it back in her bag. Her mother emerged, coat slightly askew, and her cloud of white hair out of place. Kate put her arm across her tiny shoulders and steered her into a seat. "I'll get you some tea." Elizabeth nodded. She propped her stick against the side of the table. Kate joined a short queue at the counter. At that moment, the toddler let out an ear-piercing scream. Elizabeth and Kate glanced at one another across the cafe. The young couple apologised to Elizabeth, who gave a tight smile and shook her head as if to say, "That's the least of my worries." "They want me back again next week," Elizabeth said, when Kate returned with their drinks. "It is heart failure." She emptied 3 sachets of sugar into her tea and stirred. "What can they do?" "All down to me, apparently. Exercise, low-salt diet, no smoking." Elizabeth took a compact out of her bag. "They expect me to do all that at my age." She applied lipstick to her thinned lips, emphasising the cupid's bow with careful precision. She turned the compact mirror this way and that to see all the angles of her ruffled hair. If only Ray was here. Her eyes glistened. I'm here. Kate scratched her dry, flaking hands. I know it's not the same. Elizabeth sipped her tea. Who was the letter from? No one important. Elizabeth looked in the mirror again and patted her hair back in place. Kate lifted her bag on the table just as her mobile started to vibrate. She stood up and made for the door. The midwife didn't sound too concerned. It's too soon for another scan, she told Kate, and it doesn't sound like it was very much blood, so I suggest we hang on a bit longer. Give me a call if it gets any worse. Kate took a deep breath, wondering if the baby would be all right. She peered through the window at her mother, who was taking the folded-up letter out of Kate's bag. If only she could bang on the window. Now she was reading it. There's nothing I can do until then, Kate asked, desperate for a quick solution so she could end the call. Not really, I'm afraid. You're still so early on. If you can make it to 12 weeks, there's a much higher chance everything will be okay. Try and rest as much as you can. If the bleeding gets any worse, call me or your GP. Kate thanked her and switched off the phone. She stood for a moment with her fingers to her lips. She shouldn't even be upset. But if she was going to miscarry, it could be painful and messy and hard to hide from James. She would have to tell him, wouldn't she? Back inside, the letter lay in a strange shape on the table, a checkerboard of creases. Kate snatched it up. What's all this about? Elizabeth asked. You shouldn't read other people's letters. Kate avoided her eye. That's a lot of money they're asking for. Kate buried the letter deep in her bag. Who is it thinks you owe them all that? Can we leave it? Kate zipped her bag shut. The toddler started screaming and drumming its feet against the back of the high chair. The mother glanced at Kate, and for a split second she saw desperation in the woman's eyes. Kate held her gaze, trying her best to convey some sympathy for her situation, but the woman looked away. Shall we go? Elizabeth mouthed. Kate nodded, wondering what to do about the letter. Stupid, stupid, leaving it where her mother could nose around. It wouldn't be long before she made an educated guess about who it was from, and then what? Would she keep it to herself? Kate certainly couldn't confide in her. 2 whole decades apart. So much had happened in that time that her mother didn't know about. Now there was something else she didn't want to tell James. She hated keeping it from him, but what choice did she have? She'd do anything to stop him finding out what she did. Chapter 5. Kate stared at the message on her phone. Unknown number. Pay up, or I'll come and get it myself. I know where you live. How could he know? Maybe he was bluffing, just trying to scare her. But he knew where Mum lived. She didn't want to get into a conversation about it. He might think he was in with a chance of getting the money. She imagined asking James how he'd found out their home address. What would he say? Through the business. Through Company's house. Of course. He'd been at Sopwell House. He must know all about them and Fearless events. Was he watching the house? She leaned across the kitchen counter. There was no one out on the green. What if he followed James on his run by the canal? He could tell him anything. He wouldn't need to say who he was. Just a stranger filling him in about the terrible thing his wife did. He'd always been the jealous type, starting fights if another man looked her way. Was James in danger? She only had about 15,000 in savings, but that was it, nowhere near the 30 he wanted. She couldn't ask James to help her out, because he'd want to know what it was for. The only alternative was dipping into the business account. Profits were up, but how would she explain borrowing that amount? It was out of the question. She pushed her phone into the back pocket of her jeans and checked out of the window again. There was a cloth doll abandoned in the middle of the green. She hoped the little girl who'd been out there playing earlier would come back for it. Of the 4 houses on the other side of the newly cut grass, she couldn't see any front doors open or anyone about. A moment later, James put his cold face next to hers. She gasped so loud he laughed. Hey, you're a bit jumpy. Sorry, I didn't hear you come in. How was your run? She kissed his ruddy cheek, trying to calm her breathing. Good, but it's a fresh wind. They gazed out at the dancing trees. The bright sun was deceiving with its lack of warmth. See many people about? She picked up the chopping knife and started on the onions. Only a couple of dog walkers. Speak to anyone? The knife was poised above half an onion. Her eyes tingled. No. He frowned and rooted under her jumper, settling his hands on her stomach. Careful! She flinched and pulled away. What's wrong? James asked. Your hands are freezing, and in case you hadn't noticed, I'm holding a knife. Should I be worried? He laughed. Of course not. But if pushed to the edge, wasn't she capable of almost anything? She put the knife down. But you're so nice and warm, and that smells delicious. He cupped her face and kissed her lips. A waft of sweat caught in her throat. Today, even the smell of frying minced lamb was making her stomach churn. Why don't you grab a shower and I'll make coffee? She finished chopping the onions and scraped the pile into the cinnamon-spiced meat juices. A cloud of steam ballooned up from the pan. What time are Susie and Harry coming? He collected up the peelings and tipped them into the countertop compost tray. 5 o'clock. He washed his hands and stripped off his top in front of her. James, someone will see you. She pulled at the blind, but it wouldn't budge. She scanned outside. There was no one there. Never bothered you before, darling. He kissed her on the cheek. They're getting a babysitter, are they? No, I told you they're bringing Lily with them. She's still so small. So Harry won't be drinking? He stood half naked in front of her, hands on hips, flexing his abs. Susie will be driving. She's still breastfeeding. James pulled a face before going into the downstairs wet room. Oh, and don't forget, they want to talk to us about being godparents, she called after him. She tipped her ear, expecting his reply. He groaned. Surely they'd be better off asking people who have sprogs themselves. Kate turned back.